yeah, this is cool. Then we saw returning from functions. So we basically return from functions when we want to use that value somewhere else, right? So for example, if you have like multiply, where you're taking two parameters, and whatever is the result you want to return, you're returning the result because this result has to be used somewhere else. So which means when I call this multiply num function, I mean, it is not going to print the value. It is just going to return the value to me. This print num function is going to return the value for me. So when I call this, I will have to save that value, this returned value, into some other variable, right? Whenever I call this function multiply num, whatever is the result of multiplying a and b, I have to, that will be returned by the function, and that is what I'll have to save in some other variable. So in this case, if I'm calling multiply num function, I will save it inside C variable. So in this case, the sum, the multiplication of 10 and 15, whatever is the result, that will get stored in this C variable. So actually, if you see, there is one more example of inbuilt function in which we do that. So whenever we take an input from the user, suppose we are taking some two numbers from the user. So we say first num, or let's just say whenever you're taking a name from the user, right? First name from the user. So in this case, you put input, right? You say input, and inside of input, you put the prompt message, that is, please enter name. Right. So here in this case, this input function, see, you can see it clearly, the input is a function because here we are using parenthesis while calling input. So it means input is a function. Whenever we use parenthesis while calling any name, while calling anything, that anything is a function. In this case, input we are input is followed by the parenthesis, right? Which means input is a function. So here you can see whatever is the whatever is like returned from this input function is saved in fname. That means this input function must be taking input from the user and returning it from the method. So since it's returning something from the method, it's returning the input of the user, I have to save that in some variable. That's why I use some variable in order to save whatever input comes from the input function. And here if you can see this please enter name, right? So this please enter name is an argument. Right? So this please enter name is an argument that you're passing inside of the input function. So probably input function would need one parameter, and that is what you're passing here, please enter name. And after processing, like input must be doing some process, that is, it must be taking some input from the user. After taking that, it is returning that input, whatever it got from the user, from this function. It is returning that from the function. So whenever I call the input function, I have to save that returned value somewhere. So that's why I save it in some variable. So similarly here in this user defined function, in this function that I have defined, so here you have a function which returns the multiplication of two numbers. So since it's returning something, I have to save it somewhere. So I save it in a variable, right? Cool. So yeah, so similarly here, since I'm just returning an integer value, which is a into b, this is basically going to depend on whatever the parameters. If say I give the arguments as 10.4 and 15.3, in that case the multiplication would be a float variable, right? It won't be an integer variable anymore. The multiplication of two floats is a float. So in that case, the returned value will be a float. So similarly, you can return tuples, lists, and dictionaries, and also you can return another functions, right? You can return other functions as well. So for that, we saw an examples of inner function. So inner function is basically used when you have any requirement of repeated operation inside a main function, right? So let's just inner function. So now in this case, instead of passing the two parameters that are two numbers that are supposed to be added inside of the function, I'll just take no parameters at all. And now I have to take the input from the user, right? So taking the input from the user means using that input function, right? So what I'll do is I'll just define another inner function called in take input, something like this. Right? I'm just defining an inner function which will be used multiple times inside of my main function. So my main function is add function. Now suppose I'm going to add three numbers, right? I'm going to add three numbers. So I will have to write the input statement three times, right? So instead of that, what I'm doing is I'm just directly creating an inner function to take input. So here, let's say now is equal to input
हाँ पर मैं किसी को ऐड वैड नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ पर तुम करना बैठ के मैं बस ऑन करके छोड़ दूँ ठीक है ठीक है चलो देखो
okay. So yeah, and then after doing this, it is just going to return num, right? I want to use this num somewhere, so I'm returning it from take input function. So now, since I want three, suppose if I'm adding three numbers, so instead of writing this whole line three times, so if I'm adding three numbers, I would have to take three numbers from the user, right? So in this case, instead of writing this line three times, I'm directly going to call the take input method. So I'm just going to say take input. Right, so so I'm going to call it three times because I want to add three numbers. So in that way, I want to take three inputs from the user. Right, so three numbers, and then say return A plus B plus C. Right, so this is what an inner function, this is what the inner function looks like. So it's basically the same as the outer function, but it's written inside the scope of the outer function. And this we can find out easily by looking at the indentations, right? So this second function, this inner function is indented in a certain way. It's indented inside of the outside function, right? So using indentations, you can find out like if this is the inner function. If I run this, okay, I'll have to call the outer function still. Okay, so this is like a function definition. This whole thing is a function definition. But in order to run the function, you have to call the function somewhere. So I'll just say add func. Okay, again, this is returning A plus B plus C. So since this main function is returning something, I have to store it somewhere. So I'll store it, I'll call the function and I'll store it in ans variable, and then I'll print ans variable. So now the total is 69. So that is what it is calculated from. Okay. So clear till here? I think these are most of the things we covered last time. Is it clear for everyone? Shall we move ahead? Any questions that you came across? Like probably while solving it yourself, I guess. Okay. Okay, cool. So I'm assuming everything is clear. If anything is not clear, please let me know. Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll look into some questions. So this is the basic knowledge that you require for writing any function. So what we'll do is we'll just look into some questions so that we are able to understand this Python functions better. So we'll take a look into three or four examples of the same. And I mean, this would not only involve like just functions, but the other concepts as well. So these are some questions that I found interesting on the internet, and so I thought like we can discuss it in the class. And after this, there are two more concepts remaining, like two more advanced concepts remaining of functions. That is, one would be anonymous function and the second would be main functions. So I think that we will look into after after solving these four questions. Right? Okay. So let's just take one small example to start with. This question is, so here the question is to find the max of three numbers by using method, like write a function that finds the max of three numbers basically. So since we want to find the max of three numbers, how many parameters should be present to my function? Find max. How many parameters should be present? Anyone? I have to find the max of three numbers. So how many parameters should I take? Anyone? Okay. Okay. Okay, what does the parameter mean? At least that can someone tell me? Okay, 3. Cool. Just keep on responding so that like I know you guys are listening. Fine. So let's take 3 parameters, right? A, B, and C, right? So now I want to find the maximum of these 3 numbers, right? These 3 A, B, and C. I want to find the max of, or let's just begin with 2 numbers, right? If I have A and B, okay, and I want to find the max of A and B, what should I use here? How should I check if A is greater than B or not? How should I check if one number is greater than the other? Yeah, someone was speaking, I guess. Okay.
If A is equal, A greater than B.
Okay, if A greater than B, right. Right, so in this case, if A is greater than B, which means A is the maximum of the 2 numbers. So I'll just print max number is, right, max number is A, right? So now I don't have to check the second condition, like I don't have to check B is greater than A. Obviously if A is greater than B, obviously if A is not greater than B, which means B would be equal to or greater than A, right? If A is greater than B, so there can be 3 cases, right? Either A is equal to B, either A is equal to B, or A is greater than B, or A is less than B, right? These 3 cases can only happen. If you have 2 numbers, those 2 numbers can be related in these 3 ways only. Either it can be equal, either both the numbers can be equal, or one number can be greater than the other, right? So here I am checking if A is greater than B. If A is greater than B, then the maximum is A for sure, right? Okay, so let's just say if A is equal to B, in this case both numbers are the same.
Yeah.
Numbers. Okay. And if this is also not true, if A is not greater than B or A is not equal to B, which means B is greater than A, right? That is the only alternative left. So in this case, I'll just say max number is B. Right? Is this understood to everyone? Is this clear for everyone? What we have done is, I'm just finding the max of 2 numbers. So we know that 2 numbers can be related on 3 ways, right? Either A can be equal to B, or A can be greater than B, or A can be less than B. These 3 relations can only happen between 2 numbers, right? So first I'm checking if A is greater than B. If A is greater than B, then for sure the maximum number is A, because A is greater than B, right? Or else if A is equal to B, which means if A is not greater than B, then it can either be equal to B or it can be less than B, right? So if my first condition is false, if this condition is false, then the relation between A and B can either be that A is equal to B or A is less than B. So I'm checking the second condition, which is A is equal to B. If this condition is also false, which means clearly A is less than B, so I don't have to check the condition. I can directly say else A is less than else the maximum number is B. Hello everyone. Clear everyone? So here in this case, like if I don't want to print and I just want to return the maximum number, right? Returns the maximum. Right now just C2, right? Returns the maximum. If I want to return the maximum number in this case, I am just going to, like instead of printing here, I am just going to say return. Return A, right? In this case, return A, and if max is B, in that case, return B. Return B. Okay, now in the case that we have equal number, which means there is no max number, right? Both of them are equal. So you can, like, I can return a -1. -1 means it is invalid. The case is invalid. There is no maximum number. Both of the numbers are the same only, right? So here, why can we have 3 return statements? Because this is an if, elif, else block, right? So only one of if, elif or else will get executed. So finally, only one return will be executed. So if A is greater than B, suppose we have numbers like 17 and 10. So in this case, 17 is A and 10 is B. So here we can clearly see A is greater than B. 17 is greater than 10, right? So once this if block gets executed, this will become true. If block will become true and it will return 17, right? So it won't go below at all, right? If we have opposite numbers, like or suppose if we have both 10, right? In this case, the first condition will not be true. A is greater than B will not be true. So Python will check the second condition, which is A is equal to B. Since both the number are same, this condition will become true and the function will return -1. It won't go below this, right? And if the case is opposite, like if B is greater than A, if the second number is 17, so in this case, both first and second conditions will be false, right? A is greater than B will be false, then A is equal to B will be false. So Python will go to the third statement and return B. So that way we can have 3 return statements in this function. Basically only one of them will get executed because of the if-else loop. So if I just find, if I just call this with, yeah. So after calling this function, I have to save it, right? Because it's returning some value. So I'll just save it and print it out. Right, so here it showed me that maximum is 10, right? Similarly, if I say 273 and 90, in this case, it gives me maximum number to be 273. Okay, so this is the case where you have 2 numbers, right? Now, we have to write the same thing for 3 numbers. So let's see how can 3 numbers be, like how can we check 3 numbers. For now, let's assume that the 3 numbers are distinct. Okay, 3 numbers are distinct, which means there is no is equal to condition here. So here the is equal to condition we checked, right? Because here A could be equal to B. But now let's assume that A, B and C, all those 3 numbers are distinct. So we don't have to check is equal to condition in this case. So here, what are the if I have A, B, and C, what can be the relation between them? So either A can be greater than both of them, right? Or B can be greater than both of them, greater than C, greater than A. or I'll just say comma here, because we only care about the greatest number. We don't care about the next two numbers. So either A can be greater than both B and C, or B can be greater than both C and A, or C can be greater than A and B, right? So these are the three options available for you. Either A can be the greatest of all the three, or B can be the greatest of all the three, or C can be the greatest of all the three. So that is what you have to check here now. Okay, so here we have three parameters, A, B and C. Right. So now first let's check if the number A is greater than both B and C. Right. So in order to check if the number is both greater than if the number A is greater than both B and C, what condition should I write?
If A is B, C.
B and there should be and, right, in between, and A is greater than C, right? You can't directly write comma C. This is an invalid syntax. You cannot write that. For every condition that you check, like for every relational operator, you can only have two operands. So here in this case, in greater than a relational operator, you can only have two operands, A and B. So here I am checking A is greater than B and A is greater than C, which means if A is greater than B is true and A is greater than C is also true, in that case we can assume, we can conclude that A is greater than both B and C, right? So here we'll have max to be A. Right? Elif, right? Now we have already checked A is greater than B and A is greater than C, right? So now I'll check elif B is greater than C and B is greater than A. Right? Right? So here we were checking if A is greater than B and A is greater than C. If I want to check if B is the maximum of all the three, then I'll check it with reference to C and with reference to A. So I'll check if B is greater than C and B is greater than A. If B is greater than both C and A, that means B is the max one. Okay. Now, since I know that these three numbers are going to be distinct, I don't have to check the third condition. Obviously, if A is greater than B is greater than C and A is not greater than both B and C and B is not greater than both C and A, which means C should be greater than both of the numbers. So if A is greater than B and A is greater than C, then the max is A, right? If or else if this is false, which means either if A is less than B or A is less than C, right? So in that case, I'll check B for B first. B is greater than C and B is greater than A. If both of these are true, then B should be the max. In case if both these conditions are not true, both this first if and elif conditions are not true, that is, if both A is greater than B is not true and A is greater than C is not true, then B is greater than C and B is greater than A is not true, then in that case C should be the max number. So let me just call this. So here it should give me 15 as the output. So give me 15 as the output. Similarly, if I have 20, so it should give me 20 as the output, right? Similarly, if this is 102, then 102 should be the output, right? So clear, everyone? Find maximum of 3 numbers. You are just checking if the numbers are greater than the other two or not. Clear? Any questions, anyone? Okay. Do you want me to repeat it again? Okay, so this was the first question, to find the max of 3 numbers. So next we'll see another simple question. Write a Python function to multiply all the numbers in a list. Right, so I have to write a function to multiply all the numbers in the list. Okay, so here, since I want to multiply all the numbers in the list, what should be the parameter? Just say
multiply.
No, the parameter. What parameter should I pass? What should be the parameter that gets passed? What should be the data type of the parameter that gets passed? Should be an integer or a float or a list? What should it be?
Integer.
I know I have to multiply all the numbers of a list. So it would be better if I just pass the list itself, right? So that the function can multiply all the numbers of the list, right? So if you have a list, if you input a list from the user probably, or if you define a list, then you can directly pass in the list to the function, because we can pass a list to the function as well as a parameter, and then what it will do is it will return the multiplication of all the numbers in the list. Okay, so here I have 5 elements in my list, and I have this list function. So next I have to multiply it, right? So this is just one way of multiplying it. I'll just say mul is equal to 1 to start with. This is like this is my final answer variable. To start with, it is 1. Okay. Now I have to multiply every element of the list, right? So finally I should get 12 into 23 into 34 into 1 into 2, right? All the elements of the list should be multiplied. So I'll first iterate through all elements of the list. So let's say for I in list. Okay, and I will just multiply it to ans, right? So why have I taken ans is equal to 1? Because I can directly multiply each number to ans, right? So since initially ans is 1, for the first element 12 in my list, in this for loop, ans would be ans is equal to ans into whatever is the current variable. So I'd say, right? Ans into I, right? So I for the first one is 12. So then this would become 12 into 1, which is 12. In the second iteration, I already have ans is equal to 12. So now this will become 12 into 23, because I would be 23, right? So similarly, it will keep on multiplying to ans variable. So that's why you have ans is equal to 1 to begin with.
Ma'am, so it will print like this. 12, 23, 34, 1, 2.
It won't print anything. I have not mentioned any print statement here, but what it will do is it will go through each element of the list and it will multiply that element to the current value of ans variable. Right? So suppose, so initially ans is equal to 1. Okay, so in the first iteration, this ans will become ans is equal to the current value of ans, which is 1 into 12, because the current the first element is 12. Then in the second iteration, ans will become current value of ans, that is 1 into 12, into the current value of whatever is the iteration, whatever is the like in the loop, what is the current value of the list element, that is 34. In the third iteration, this will become current value of answers, which is 1 into 12 into 34 into 1. And then finally it will become answers is equal to 1 into, like this would be the current value, 34 into 1 into the value of the list, the current value of the list, which is 2. So finally you will get a multiplication of all the numbers of the list. Clear?
Okay, ma'am, I got it.
Okay. So yeah, so after this is done, I'll just return the answer variable. So say this is multiply, and I'll pass this list. So again, this is just a placeholder, okay? This is not like passing an actual list. So just say N. Okay, and then I'll print answer. So now it is giving me the multiplication of all the values from the list. Fine. So clear, everyone, the first 2 questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's go to the third question. So yeah, so this question is basically I have to write a function, okay, function which takes a string. So parameters are string.
Assignment questions.
Sorry.
These are assignment questions.
Not exactly assignment questions. We are just looking through some questions like to get a better understanding of functions. You can do these functions on your own later on after the class. Like you can just probably not look at the solution and try to do it by yourself later on.
Okay, ma'am.
So yeah, so I have to write a function which takes a string as a parameter. Okay, it will take a string as a parameter, and it should return me whether the string contains all the alphabets from A to Z, right? So if whatever string I'm passing to the function, if that string contains all alphabets from A to Z, then it should give me true. If it does not contain all the alphabets from A to Z, then it should give me false. Okay, is this clear for everyone? What is the question? Okay, I am going to pass a string to the function, and the function should return me true in case all the alphabets from A to Z are present in the string, and it should give me false if some of the characters are missing. Okay, so for example, yeah, any question?
No, ma'am.
So for example, there's this one string which contains all the alphabets from A to Z, which is the quick brown fox jumps over the lazy dog. So if you check this sentence right here, it contains all the alphabets. It's supposed to contain all the alphabets from A to Z. Okay, so that you can verify it later, I guess. So yeah, so such a string is called a pangram. Okay, it's called a pangram, and we basically have to find out if the given string is a pangram or not. Which means if the given string contains all the letters, all the alphabets from A to Z or not. Right? So let me just write that function. So I'll name the function pangram, and which will I'll pass a string to the function. Okay, so I have to evaluate this string that I'm passing into the function. So pangram is the name of the function, str is the parameter that I'm passing. Okay, so okay, so now what I'm going to check is, like, I will have this alphabet string which will have all the characters from A to Z. Okay, so why do I have it now? Now, since I want to check if my given string, if the given string contains so now I have, suppose, alpha, just cutting short the name. So you have alpha string which contains all the letters in the English alphabets, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. Okay, so it contains all the letters in the English alphabet. So my string, this str string, is a pangram if all the letters present in this alpha string are present in str as well, right? If all the letters present in alpha string are present in str, which means all the letters of the English alphabets are present in the given string, and which means the string is a pangram, right? Clear, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
So what do we have to do here? We have to check if every character present in the alpha string is also present in the str string or not, right? So I'll just iterate alpha for I in alpha, right? For I in alpha, which means if for every character in alpha, right? If this character, whatever is being stored in I at the moment for this iteration, if it is not present in str, if I not in str, which means I should return false, right? I'll return false. Let's just say is pangram, which finds out if the given string is a pangram or not. So if my current, I'm iterating for all the characters in the alpha string, and if at given point, if any character is not present in the str string, if this character I is not present in str, which means one of these characters A, B, C, D, like of the English alphabet is not present in the given string, in that case directly return false, because that every character should be present in str, right? That is what the meaning of pangram is, that every character of A to Z should exist in the given string. So since this I character is not present in the string, which means it's not a pangram, so you can directly return false instead of going for the next iterations. So when you return false, right, the control will come out of the function, and then the following iterations will not happen. So the for loop will also get cut in between, right? So yeah, so this is cool. And so if it's not there, then you return false, or else like if all the iterations of I, which is if all characters are or I are present, then return true. Why did I return true here? Because my for loop was checking, I was checking if each character in the string is present in str or not. If it's not present, then you return false at that point. And if the control has come till line number 12, it means it did not return false anywhere. It means the control did not go out of the function at any point, right? Which means all characters are present in the string str. That is why it came out of the loop. Or else if some character from alpha would have been missing from str, then at that point the function would have returned false, right? But it did not return false, and the control came to line number 12, which means that the control came to line number 12, which means that like all the characters are present in str, and so I can return true at this point. Clear, everyone? Now if I call this is pangram with some random sentence, like say 9 is the king. So obviously this does not contain all the characters of the English alphabet. You do not find Q, R, S, T over here, right? Q, R is not there. Then I think S is there. A is also not there. So you can see quite evidently that there are some from this alpha string which are not present in this given string. So which means it should return false value. So here I'll just say, now since this is returning this boolean value is pangram, I can directly use is pangram function, whatever is being returned from is pangram function with a if statement, right? If this condition is going to return either a true or false, right? So it is a valid if condition. So if this pangram, the lion is a king, then you print saying the given string is a pangram. Right? Else it's not a pangram. Like only two possibilities are possible here, right? Either it is a pangram or it's not a pangram. So, the given string is not a pangram. Okay. If I run this, it says the given string is not a pangram, right? But instead of the lion is the king, if I put this string, the quick fox jumps over the lazy dog, which is a pangram. I know this is a pangram, so it should give me true. Okay, so if I put this as the string, it should give me the string, given string is a pangram. Okay, clear everyone? Clear everyone? Any questions about this?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so then let's go and let's create a let's check out the last example. So this is basically to create a basic calculator in Python, okay? So you have like 4 functions in Python. You have 4 functions that you want to use in this calculator. So you have to create a calculator which has 4 operations, which is add, subtract, multiply, and divide, right? So you have 4 operations, which means you will require 4 functions for those 4 operations, right? And then you are going to take 2 input numbers from the user, and then you are going to give the user the option to select which operation they want to do, right? So let's just see what all has to be done. So first is functions for the operations, functions for the 4 operations, right? Then taking input, 2 numbers. What all input you need? You need 2 numbers and you need the operation. What operation is to be performed, right? So this is what you need. And then depending on the input, you will have to give the answer, provide answer. Okay. So let's start by creating the 4 functions. So first we had def add, which is going to add num1 and num2. So just return num1 plus num2. Okay. Similarly, you have subtract. Return num1 minus num2. Then you have multiply. So you will multiply the 2 numbers, num1 into num2. Yeah? Any questions? Someone is saying something? And then finally you have divide. num2. So fine. So first thing is done. So we have you have made 4 functions for the 4 operations. Now we have to take input from the user, right? So let's just give any prompt to the user. Okay. So let's just say, I am basically printing this instead of writing everything inside the input method. So let's say please select operation. Okay, and say first is add. Then you have subtract. So this is just for the user's information. You're providing the users with what all options they can choose. Multiply, and fourth is divide. Okay, so you have given the user 4 operations among which they can choose any. So now let's take the input from the user. So this was just for the user's reference, like in order to tell the user these are the 4 operations that can be performed. Okay, but now you have to give the user, you have to take the input from the user, right? First you have to take the operation from the user. So say here, just give the user prompt saying enter the number. Right, so if the user wants add, then they will enter 1. If the user wants subtract, then they will enter 2. Multiply 3 and divide 4. So I just say select is equal to, this is me, like I'm taking the input from the user of what operation is supposed to be performed. Select operation. Okay, after the operation gets selected, you have to take the 2 numbers from the user. So I'll just say number 1. Int input. Enter first number. Okay, then same thing, second input. Enter second number. Okay, and now we have to perform the operation according to whatever is inputted by the user. So if the user is inputted 1, right, if the select has 1 as the value, then I am going to call the add function. If select has 2 as the value, then I'm going to call subtract function. If select has 3 as the value, multiply, and 4 then divide. So how do I check? What should I check? I'll use if.
Else, if else.
Yeah, right. Just say if select is equal to 1, I'm just going to say double equal to check if LHS is equal to RHS. That is what double equal to is used for, right? To check if LHS is equal to RHS or not. So if select is 1, okay, if select is 1, then I'm just going to say, so initially let me just take ans is equal to 0. And I'm just going to say ans is equal to, this function was called add, right? So I'm going to add number 1, comma number 2. So whatever is the output of add function, that gets stored in ans variable, right? If it's not 1, then elif select is equal to 2, right? If it's not 1, then probably it's 2. So this is the second case I'm checking. So in this case, I'm just going to call subtract instead of add. Number 1, number 2. Okay. Elif if it's not even 2, then it can be 3. So I'm just saying 3 ans is equal to multiply number 1, number 2. Now either I can directly say else, or I can say elif select is equal to 4. Now why I'm doing this is because I want one more condition. Okay, there is one more condition which needs to be checked. That is when the user is giving some invalid input, right? If the user has given an operation which is not among 1, 2, 3 or 4, then I have to give some error prompt to the user, right? So that's why I'm checking 4 as well. So if it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, then it is an error. Divide number 1.
And error will be shown by else.
Yeah, error will be shown by else. So else. Okay, so else I'll just show the error, which means invalid input. Okay, and I will just say return. Okay, and here I'm just going to print whatever is the answer.
Ma'am, this code is very lengthy. How can we short this?
You can shorten this. I mean, I think all of these things are required only. There is nothing you can shorten over here. So see, these functions you cannot shorten. You require a separate function for each of the operation. Then this is also a prompt. So basically you can try to give a small, shorter prompt, or just use all these 4 print statements into one only. Something like that you can try. Make it short. Again, this is taking operation and taking the input numbers. This is also something you cannot shorten. And finally, you have the this if condition, right? If construct loop. So this is also something you cannot shorten. So I guess there is not much scope to shorten it anyway. So let me just see this one. So, yeah, you cannot use return. Okay, you cannot use return outside of a function. So maybe what we can do is just cut this. Okay, so I'll just say -1 to begin with instead of 0, and then I'll print here ans, which means if ans is -1, that is an invalid input, right? So here first the if else construct will be executed. In case it's an invalid input, so this -1 will get printed instead of the actual answer, or else whatever is being returned by the functions, like either add, subtract, multiply, or divide, whatever is getting returned from the function, that will get printed here. So let's just check this. So here you can see like it is giving me a prompt saying please select operation, add, subtract, multiply, or divide. So let me just select multiply first. Then it is asking me for the first number and the second number, and then it is giving me a output for the same. So similarly, you can try it for some divide maybe, and then you have first number, second number, and it just gives me whatever is the answer for the division operation. So yeah, is this clear for everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah. Any questions? Anyone like want me to repeat any of these 4 questions again?
Ma'am, but why did you change the value of ans?
That is because like I just wanted to see here in this case the if else condition will get executed first, right? This part of the code will get executed first, and according to whatever is the this is the selected if or elif condition, according to that ans will get modified. So initially I had ans is equal to 0, right? So ans is equal to 0, and now according to if one was selected, then addition result would have been added. If 2 was selected, then subtraction result would have been added. So in this case, like if it's invalid, then even in that case, this print ans will get printed, right? Even if the case is invalid, this will get printed. Print ans will get printed, right? So I just wanted to give some output like invalid output. Okay, so that's why I gave it as -1. I mean, it's not a very proper output in case the like, or basically what can you do is just remove this from here. Other way could be to just print this wherever it's required. So like after selection, if 1 gets selected, then you print ans over there itself. If 2 gets selected, then you print ans over here. So in this case, you don't even need that ans variable outside. You can directly print it over there. Ans. Because I mean my this logic was basically I don't want any like any valid output when the input is invalid. When the user has given me something apart from 1, 2, 3, 4, nothing, the answer should not get printed, right? So I think this is the right way. You can just print it over here itself. So in this case, if it's an invalid input, then in the else condition, nothing will get printed apart from invalid input. So if I say 5, it will, okay, it'll just take 2 numbers and then it'll just say invalid input. Okay. Yeah. Clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let me just go back to the PPT and see. So let's quickly go through the concepts of anonymous function and main functions. Okay, so anonymous function. So anonymous, like from the name itself, you can understand that anonymous function means you don't have, that a function does not have a name. Okay, so basically you use anonymous functions whenever the requirement is very less. Like if you are requiring this function only once, or if that function just has like 1 line, so in that case you can directly use anonymous function. So this is like a shortcut for making a function, right? Okay, so function is defined without a name. It will be defined without a name. Unlike normal functions, they are defined using term lambda. So usually in case of writing a function, we use def keyword, right, in order to create a function. So in this case, in lambda functions or in anonymous functions, we use lambda keyword in order to create the function. So that's why these functions are also called as lambda functions. That's why these functions are also called as lambda functions. And here you can see this is basically the syntax of creating a lambda function. We'll see an example of this. But basically this is the way in which you create a lambda function. Lambda arguments expression. So what does this mean is whenever we are putting in some parameters inside of our function, right? Whenever we define a function using the def keyword, at that point we put in some parameters, right? We put in some parameters inside the functions. So here, like the same thing will be in this case, while writing anonymous function, you will specify the parameters or the arguments after writing lambda space whatever are the arguments required for the function, and then you have expression. So like in normal function, we can write as many lines as we want, right? But in lambda function, you can have only one expression. That is the condition required for writing an anonymous function. That your expression, that is the number of lines in the function, should be only one. So you can have only one expression in your lambda function. That is like a shortcut for creating a function. If you have just one line in your function, then it does not make sense to write a whole function, right? So in that case, you have these shortcuts to create a function. So this can have as many number of arguments as you want. So if suppose you are just adding 3 numbers, so in that case your arguments would be A, B, C, that is 3 arguments you will have, but the expression would be only one, which is A plus B plus C, right? So you have just one expression, that is your function is doing just one small thing, one expression. The function consists of only one expression, but you can have multiple arguments in that lambda function.
So we'll see an example of it to understand it better. So you can see can have multiple arguments but only one expression. Then you have anonymous functions can be used when the function is required only a few times and has fewer tasks. So if this function is required only a few number of times, less number of times, then you can create an anonymous function instead of creating a normal function. Alright. In general, used as an argument for higher order functions. We'll see that later on. We'll see the last two lines later. So let's just go back and try to create a lambda function. Lambda or anonymous both mean the same thing. Okay. So let's just see the difference between anonymous or lambda function and a normal function. So if I have to
Of lambda.
lambda is just meaning of lambda. That is what you're asking.
Yes, ma'am.
Lambda is just a Greek alphabet. It's a Greek alphabet. Like they have named it lambda function. Like I don't know why have they named it, but lambda, if you want to see the meaning, it's just a Greek alphabet like alpha, beta, right? Gamma is one of the alpha, beta, gamma. Similarly, lambda is one of the Greek alphabets. Whereas here it's just it does not have any internal meaning. It just means that it's a anonymous function, and we start the anonymous function with this lambda keyword. So yeah, so like if I want to write a function to get a cube of a given number, right? So the function to get cube of given number, to return cube of given number. Okay, so you have def cube. Okay, and you have to provide one number to it, and then it will return the cube of this number. So cube is basically power 3, right? So if you want 2 cube of 2, that would be 2 raised to 3, that is 2 into 2 into 2. So similarly, I have done this. The cube function y would be the parameter, and we are returning y into y into y, right? So we are multiplying that number 3 times and returning as a cube basically. That is what we are returning. So this is a normal function. This is how you normally write a function. Now, if you want to write a lambda function, so first of all, lambda function have to be saved somewhere, right? So in order to use it, you have to save that somewhere, right? Because it does not have a name, so you cannot call it with a name, right? So you'll have to save this lambda function in some variable and then use the variable. Okay. In this case, in a normal function, there was the function name. This cube was a function name. So whenever I require the cube function, whenever I require cube function to be called, I can directly say cube and this function will get called. But in case of lambda function, since you do not have a name, you have to store that function in some variable and use that variable instead. So let's say I have g as the variable, and so I'm writing the lambda function, lambda, and followed by whatever arguments I need to pass. Suppose let's say x is the argument I need to pass, then I have to put a colon. Okay, so colon means that whatever is the following statement, that is the expression that the function needs to evaluate. That is the expression that the function needs to perform. So here in this case, the function, the expression is x into x into x. Right? So I have just said lambda space whatever is the argument that is required. So there is one argument required, one parameter required. And why is that required? Because I want to cube this number. Whatever would be passed, that is the one I want to cube, right? So, and then colon. After colon, whatever follows, that will be the expression that this lambda function has to execute. So in this case, it is x into x into x. Okay? Yeah, this is the way you define a lambda function. Now, in order to use this lambda function, all you have to do is you just say so basically this x into x into x, right? By default, a lambda function will return this expression. So you don't have to write return as you have written here. Return y into y into y. It's implicit that whenever you are defining lambda function, this whatever is the expression. So basically, whenever this gets called, whatever is passed as x, whatever is the value that is passed in place of x, that will be evaluated here. So suppose I pass 2, in place of x while calling this lambda function. So this 2 will be multiplied by itself 3 times. So it will be 2 into 2 into 2. And whatever is that value, that would be returned from here. Okay, that is by default. You don't have to specify a return keyword specifically. So I'll just say G, or maybe I'll just save this answer somewhere. G. Okay, so G is my lambda function, but I have to pass some parameter to it. So I'll say 2. Okay, so when I say G2, okay, so when I say G2, which means G is the function, G is the basically G is the variable in which my lambda function is stored. Okay, and I have to pass x to this, right? So I have to pass some x to this G in order for the lambda function to be evaluated on some input, right? This lambda function requires some input x. So that is what I'm passing here. I'm passing 2 here, right? So when I print, it should be 8. That is what it is. Right? So this is just a simpler way. So if you see here, if you see the difference, so there is some amount of, this looks more cleaner, right? Since it's just one expression, you can just get it done in one line itself. You don't have to write multiple lines. So this is what an anonymous function is. This is how we define an anonymous function. So maybe you can see like more anonymous functions. So this was for cube, right? This was for creating cube. Similarly, if you want to create a function, a lambda function for getting square of a number, you just say lambda x something else. So this will get you, this square will get you the square of any number. Yeah, so this is the way in which you define a lambda function. Clear, everyone?
Yes, ma'am. This is also same with the cube.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. It's the same way only. It's basically you're saving some space. It's more, the code is more cleaner because you just have one line, so there's no need of like writing the whole syntax of def and function name and then returning it. The only lambda keyword is used here, and you can specify the whole function in one line. Okay. So now let's see what is a higher order function, right? So here in the PPT, if you see, here in the PPT, if you see on the second last line, it is said in general used as an argument for higher order function. Okay, so what is higher order functions is, so I think we haven't discussed this before, so we'll just take an example of this after this, but you can actually pass a function as a parameter to a function. Okay, so right till now we have been passing parameters like integers, strings, lists, dictionaries, all these things we have been passing as parameters to a function. Right? So similarly, you can also pass a whole function into a function, right? You can pass a function as a parameter to a function. So let's just check an example of that. Okay. So yeah, this is kind of this example. So now I have two functions, for example, right? I have shout. Okay, shout is one example. So whatever text you pass in shout, right, it will just it will print that, or it will return that text all in uppercase, right? That is the function, that is the task that my shout function is doing. So whatever is your text, you're just going to get everything in uppercase. So for that you can use dot upper. Dot upper is used for strings. So you can see now, I'm just going to say shout. Maybe this is insane, something like that. Somebody's shouting this is insane. So yeah, when I execute this, you can see all of the text, right? All of the characters are being converted into uppercases. So that is what dot upper does. And similarly, I'll write one more function called whisper. So Whisper is going to like say everything very softly. So in this case, all the characters of the string should get returned in lowercase. Right? So I have text dot lower. So if I call this, and if I pass some random characters in this, like this, something like this, right? So yeah, now if I run this, it says this is insane and small characters also. So yeah, so dot upper is basically going to convert all the characters of the text into capitals. Yeah.
But why?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to give you an example of like using one function inside the other. So yeah, this is like, I mean, I'll write the main function. This was just to tell you like this we have something called dot upper and dot lower in order to change the characters in the string. If your string is like if you want to convert the string, all of the characters in the string into uppercase, then you can do that using dot upper function. And similarly, if you want to convert all the characters of a string into lowercase, then you can do that using dot lower. So yeah, this is just like demonstrating. This is how it's done. Now, if I have suppose def greet, okay, so I have this function called greet, which actually takes a function. Okay, so this is a function already, and it takes a function. It takes a function as an input. Okay, and I'll just say greeting is equal to. Okay, so func is a function, right? So func, and let's assume that this func function should be taking a string input. Okay, so I have this greet function which takes another function as a parameter. It takes another function func as an input. Okay, and this func function, I'm going to pass some parameter inside this func function, which is a string. Okay, so this is okay. For now, let's just say how I use something like that. This is greeting basically. Okay, and then I'm just going to return whatever is the greeting string containing. Okay, greeting variable, whatever does it contains, that I'm going to return out of. So now if I say uppercase greeting, okay, I'll just call greet, right? Greet function requires an input as another function, right? Greet function requires another input. Greet function requires a function input. So now if I just say shout as the input, right? So shout is a function. So this is a function. The shout is a function, right? I'm just using the shout function as an input to my greet function. Okay, so inside greet, what will happen is this will get converted to shout. Okay, this func will be shout in that case, in case the control goes inside the greet function. So shout of hi, how are you, which means this shout function will get executed with the text hi, how are you, right? So this hi, how are you will be converted into uppercase and returned into greeting variable, and this greeting variable will be returned by the greet function. So here in uppercase greet, I should get hi, how are you in uppercase. Okay, so now if I run this, it says hi, how are you in uppercase. Clear everyone what I have done here? Clear everyone? Want me to explain it again? We have two functions. I have created two functions. One is shout, which is basically going to convert all the characters in the given string into uppercase, and then we have whisper, which is going to convert all the characters in the given string into lowercase. And now I have this function greet, which is going to take a function as input. So my greet function is taking another function as input, and it is going to call that another function using some string. Okay, it is going to pass some string into that other function, that passed function. Okay, and whatever is the output of executing that function is going to be saved inside greeting, and then my greet function is going to return this greeting variable, whatever is stored inside the greeting variable. So now when I call it, like in case here I'm calling greet function with shout function as the parameter. So in this case, the shout function is passed as a parameter inside the greet function. Okay, the shout function over here will take the input hi, how are you, and it will convert all the characters into uppercase and put into greeting variable. And then greeting variable will be returned by the greet function, which will be saved here in uppercase greet, and that is what I'm printing. Here, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Similarly, you can use lowercase greet also. You can use lowercase greet. And the same thing, greet, but instead of shout, now you can pass this one. You can pass another function, this one.
Print lowercase.
Yeah. Now you will see everything is being turned into lowercase. Okay. Okay, so now you can see this function, right, which takes another function as an input. Okay, these type of functions are called as higher order functions, right? So this greet function which takes another function as an input, so that's why it's called as a higher order function, right? So this greet function here is a higher order function because it takes another function as input. Oops. Another function as input, so it's a higher order function. Okay, so why did we learn this? Because the lambda functions that we learned right earlier, so these lambda functions can be passed as input to a higher order functions. That means in functions which take functions as input, we can pass a lambda function over there. So let's take an example of that. Okay. So first of all, there are three inbuilt functions in Python that you might, it's better if you know that. First is the filter function. Okay. Then you have map function, and then you have reduce function. So I'll tell you what these three functions do. So what so again, this filter function will take one function as the input and will take a list as the second input. So you have to pass two inputs or two parameters to the filter function. The first one would be a function and the second one would be a list. So what this filter function will do is whatever is the condition specified in the func function, right? So if the condition is that the number should be an even number, for example, right? So whatever is the condition specified in the func function, that condition will be executed on this list, right? And the return would be all the elements of the list that specify this that are satisfied by this condition. So for example, if you have a list, say 12 to 77, maybe 34 and 33, right? So you have 5 elements in this list. Okay, now if my function, if func is basically to find out the func is that the number should be divisible by 2. The number should be an even number, right? So if your func function states that the number should be an even number, that is, it should be divisible by 2, then after this filter function is called, the output of this filter function will only have, the output will have 12 to 34. That's it. Okay, so your func function specified that the number should be an even number, and you had specified a list along with that in the filter function. So what filter function did was it used this func function on all the elements of the list, and it filtered the list basically, right? It filtered the list to give only those elements which satisfied the condition, which satisfied the function. So in this case, if the function is that the number should be an even number, so only the return of this filter func on a list will only be the even numbers of the list. So this is what filter function does. I'll just show an example as well for this. Okay, so if I have a list, so here I'm showing the filter function using a lambda function. Okay, you like instead of this func, we will input a lambda function. 22, 197, then 27, 23. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so now we have final list. This is the list that is going to be outputted, or maybe let me just check what. I'll just say temp something, some variable, and filter. Okay, I'm calling the filter function, and I'm going to pass a lambda function to it, right? I'm going to pass a lambda function to it, lambda, right? So for every number, so the argument is x. What the filter function has to check is x mod 2 is equal to 0. Okay, x mod 2 is equal to 0, which means the number is an even number, right? So this is my condition, this is my lambda function, or this is the function that I'm inputting as a condition, and I'm just going to pass li as the list. Let me see what I'm just going to turn. Okay, so this is a filter object. So in order to convert it, like I'll have to convert this into a list. This is in some other data type. This is in some other data type that we will see later. And what we have to do is to convert it into a list, because finally we want some list. So if I check this. So now it is just giving me 22, 54 and 62. So let's check if these are the only even numbers. 5, 7 won't be even number, 22 would be the even number, 54 and 62. So these three are the only even numbers present in the given list, right? So that is what I want my final list to contain. So here lambda function, this lambda is the condition, this is a function, right? Ultimately it's a function only. And this filter function requires two inputs. One is the function and second is the list. So this is my condition function, the function which is the condition, and this is the list, li is the list. So here in this case, whatever is given as the condition from the function, that is going to be implied to all the elements of the list, and only the elements of the list that satisfy the condition would be output. Clear, everyone? Clear, everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So similarly, we have one more function, map, which also takes a function and a list as the input. So in this case, what does map do is whatever is the function, whatever is specified in the function, that will get executed on every element of the list, of this parsed list. Okay. So if this function says multiply the number by 2, multiply a given number by 2, then the map function will use this function on every element of the list, which means the return list would be having all the elements multiplied by 2. So let's just check that as well. I'll just take one more separate list. So same thing on simpler numbers. Yeah, 4 is fine. Okay, now I'll say final list. Again, you have to specify this list here, because whatever is returned from filter is not a list. It is of some other data type. But I want the output as a list, right? So in that case, I'm just going to call this list function, so that whatever is passed inside the list function will get executed, will get outputted as a list, right? So that is what I want. I want my final output should be as a list, and that's why I'm using this list function. Okay, so filter. Map. Again, the first input is a function, so I'll write a lambda function to multiply each number by p, for example. So I'll say lambda x, again the argument, and I'll say x into 2. So x into 2 is the expression, X is the argument that needs to be given to execute this lambda function. So internally, when this map function is run, all the elements of the list, right, whatever list you pass here, all the elements of the list will one by one be inputted inside this lambda function, and will be x into 2 will be executed for those elements. Now I just print final list once more. So here you can see the numbers have been multiplied by 2. So you have 10, 14, 24, 20. So one final thing, let's see the reduce function. So reduce function also takes function and list as the input. So what reduce function will do is whatever is specified, it will be like reduce is basically like aggregation. So if for example your function is multiple or addition function, okay, if you specify addition over here in this function, this inputted function, then all elements of the list will get added and you will get one single output. So that is what reduce does. It reduces the list into whatever operation you specify in the function. So if you say multiplication, then all the elements of the list will get multiplied. So let's just say addition only. Again, I'm using the same numbers. So in this case, final list, everything else remains the same. Only you have to change the higher order function. So these filter, map and reduce are basically another examples of higher order functions because they take another function as an input. So they are examples of higher order function. We have lambda x comma y. Now in this case, in order to add two numbers or in order to multiply, you need two numbers, right? So now my arguments have been increased to 2. I have two arguments. And so I am just going to add those two arguments. And I'm going to pass list. So what reduce function will do is, basically you don't need a list in reduce. You need a list in reduce. No, you don't need a list in reduce because a final output is not list, right? It would be the addition of all the numbers in this case. Whatever you're specifying here in the function, that will get executed for all the elements. So, I mean, like an aggregation of all the elements. So, if you are specifying addition, then all the elements in this list will get added. So, final list. Reduce, it should work around, okay, so the function has to be reduce is not defined. Okay, maybe this is not a user defined, you will have to import it from somewhere. So maybe what we can do is we'll see this later on because you guys don't know what does importing means right now. So we'll see this later on. So right now, the whole point is to make you understand what is the higher order, what is meaning of higher order functions, and how can lambda functions be used inside a higher order function. So is this clear for everyone? Reduce we'll see next time because apparently reduce is not directly imported, like you have to import it from some other library. So till now we haven't looked into how to import functions from different libraries, right? So when we will see those things, after that we will see this reduce functions. Okay, is this clear for everyone? Whatever we are seeing today, it's anonymous function. I think that is the only new thing that we are seeing. Apart from that, we just did quite a lot of questions. So if you have any questions about these functions that we have written, you can ask this. So yeah, tomorrow we'll take the main function, and that is the last concept left in functions, and then we will probably go on to seeing like how to import functions and all. So for today, no questions, anyone? Okay. If no one has any questions, then Shaina, I think we can end the session today.
Okay, so anyone has any questions? Any final questions for today?
No, ma'am.
Okay, okay. I guess then we can close. Thank you so much, Priya. Thanks for the session. We'll connect in the next class.
So,
Bye
yeah.
bye.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Shaina. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.